There's a moment in every service job, every single one, where someone looks at you like you're nothing. Not a person, not someone with a name, a life, a reason for being there, just an obstacle between them and what they want. Most of the time, you swallow it. You smile, you refill the water glass, you say, "Of course," right away, and you walk to the back and you breathe through it. Because that's the job, and you need the job, and making a scene costs more than it's worth. But sometimes, rarely, beautifully, memorably, someone is watching. Someone who has been in that exact position. Someone who knows exactly what it costs to keep smiling when every instinct you have is screaming in the other direction. And that someone decides, not tonight. This is the story of a woman who worked her way through nursing school as a waitress, of a nervous older man starting over, trying to hold himself together on his first real shift, and of a table that made a catastrophic miscalculation. They wanted a birthday song. They had absolutely no idea what was coming. If you have ever worn a uniform and bitten your tongue so hard it bled, if you've ever walked to the back room just to get 30 seconds of peace from someone who treated you like furniture, if you've ever wished just once that you could flip the script, this story is for you. Hit that like button, subscribe if you're new here, and settle in because this one builds slowly, lands perfectly, and leaves you with something that lasts a lot longer than a smile. Let's go back to 2015. The girl with the double life. Picture two versions of the same person existing simultaneously. Version 1, a nursing student. Early mornings, late nights, textbooks spread across a kitchen table, highlighters in 4 colors because the material is so dense and so important that you can't afford to miss anything. Clinical placements where you are handed real responsibility with shaking hands and told quietly that the margin for error here is very small. The constant low-grade awareness that what you're learning isn't abstract. It's going to matter someday to someone in genuine pain, and you had better be ready. Version 2, a waitress. Uniform on, hair back, game face assembled. Memorizing specials, managing tables, navigating the specific and exhausting emotional labor of making every single person who sits in your section feel like they are the most important person in the room, regardless of how they treat you, regardless of what kind of day you've had, regardless of how much your feet hurt. Our narrator, let's call her Sarah, is living both versions simultaneously every single day. She doesn't complain about it. She doesn't present it as hardship or martyrdom. It's just the reality of wanting something that costs money you don't have yet. You work, you study, you sleep when you can, you keep going. And the restaurant she works at is not just any restaurant. This place has a philosophy that sounds almost quaint in the era of Instagram and influencer marketing and algorithmic boosting. They don't advertise. Not a flyer, not a billboard, not a sponsored post. Their reputation exists entirely because of what happens inside those walls. If your food was extraordinary, you told someone. If the service made you feel genuinely cared for, you brought a friend next time. Word by word, table by table, year by year. That's how this place grew. It sounds slow, it sounds risky, but what it actually builds is something most restaurants never achieve: loyalty. The kind of loyalty that makes regular customers feel personally invested in the restaurant's reputation. The kind of loyalty that means everyone who works there understands in their bones that what happens at any given table on any given night is not just a transaction. It's the restaurant's reputation walking out the door on 2 legs. That philosophy is going to matter. Hold on to it. Sarah has been there long enough to know the menu inside and out, to have read the rhythms of the kitchen, to understand which managers to approach when, and to have built the kind of quiet, unspoken trust that gets you handed extra responsibility without extra title or pay. When new staff come in and need support after their initial training, Sarah is one of the people the management quietly relies on. She's not a trainer, she doesn't have the lanyard or the formal designation, but she has something that matters more in actual practice. She notices things. She anticipates. She can read a table from across the room and know 30 seconds before it becomes a problem that something is about to go sideways. On the night of this story, she is working the section right next to a new waiter. We need to talk about Robert properly, because this story is ultimately about him, even more than it's about the revenge. Robert is older. He's been recently released. The story doesn't specify details, but the implication is clear enough. He is rebuilding, starting over, trying to piece together something stable from the rubble of whatever came before. This job isn't just a job to him the way it might be to a 22-year-old picking up shifts between semesters. This job is a foothold, a reason to get up and put on a uniform and tell himself that things can still be different. He's awkward, a little shy. He second-guesses himself constantly, double-checking things he already knows because the fear of getting it wrong feels enormous when the stakes feel personal. But, and this is important, he's not bad at this. Nervous and bad are completely different things, and Sarah can see the difference immediately. He listens, he tries, he pays attention to feedback. He has the specific quality of someone who genuinely cares about doing well, and people who genuinely care almost always get there eventually, if you give them the space to find their footing. Tonight is his first night with his own complete section. No trainer beside him, no safety net he can see, just him, his tables, and the full weight of having to manage everything himself for the first time. Sarah knows what this night means for someone like Robert. She has positioned herself in the adjacent section deliberately, close enough to see him, close enough to step in without drawing attention to the fact that she's stepping in. She's his invisible net, the kind of support that works best when it's never noticed. She has done this before. She knows the shape of a nerve-wracking first night. She is ready for the usual bumps and stumbles. She is not ready for what walks through the door. They arrive like a shift in air pressure. 6 of them, mid-20s, the kind of group energy that announces itself before anyone has said a word. Something in the way they move, the way they settle into their chairs, the way the dynamic establishes itself immediately and clearly. There is one person in charge and everyone else is an audience. The leader. She's confident in the specific way that people are confident when they have just enough power in one context to believe it transfers everywhere. She's a trainer at the company's other location. She knows the industry, she knows the standards, she knows the language of service from the other side of the equation. And tonight, for reasons that are never explained and don't really need to be, she has decided to use that knowledge as a weapon. It starts with the off-menu request. Robert approaches Sarah with that particular look, the specific expression of someone who needs a lifeline but isn't sure they're allowed to ask for one. The table wants something that isn't on the menu. The leader has informed him they have all the ingredients. She has further informed him the other location makes it all the time, as if this settles the matter. Sarah reads the situation instantly. This is not the moment to teach Robert how to push back on unreasonable customers. That lesson is valuable, it will come, but not tonight. Not on a first solo shift, not when his confidence is already stretched thin across the surface of his nerves like plastic wrap over a bowl. The wrong confrontation tonight could break something in him that takes a long time to rebuild. She tells him to check with the kitchen. The kitchen says yes, it's basically a wrap, flexible, easy, no problem. And with that yes, the leader smiles. Not a smile of gratitude, a smile of satisfaction. The smile of someone who has established to her own satisfaction the terms of the evening. I ask, you provide, and we will continue this arrangement indefinitely. What follows is an hour of slow, methodical, almost artistic cruelty. every time Robert completes a request, a new one materializes. Not immediately, he waits just long enough that he thinks he's finished, just long enough that his shoulders drop a fraction and his breathing starts to even out, and then, actually, could we also get water refills, more bread, extra napkins, a sauce she's just decided she wants, a question on the menu that doesn't actually require a menu answer, just his time and attention and the performance of helpfulness. It never stops. Sarah watches from the next section. She's managing her own tables, absorbing Robert's overflow when she can, slotting his customers into her own cycles so he doesn't completely drown. But she can see his face, and what she sees there makes something in her chest tighten. It's not just stress. It's not just first-night nerves. It's a man slowly becoming convinced in real time that he's right about himself, all alone, that he's not capable, that he doesn't belong here, that the thing he thought might be a new beginning is actually just confirmation of what he feared. She catches him in the back between trips, talks him down. "You're doing fine. Breathe. I've got your other tables." She tries to give him what she can, small doses of reassurance, an anchor to grab when the anxiety starts pulling him under. But she can also see that it's not quite enough. The table has gotten into his head in a way that 5 minutes of encouragement in a back hallway can't fully counteract. Because here's what Sarah doesn't know yet. She's only seeing the surface, the demands, the constant neediness, the relentless requests. She doesn't know yet what's running underneath. The table came in late. They're the last ones left on the section, everyone else gone, the rest of the restaurant shutting down around them like lights going off in a building after close. The closing staff are cleaning and counting and preparing to go home. It's just Robert's section, just this table, this corner, this final hour of his first solo shift. And then Robert comes to Sarah with a question. How do I process employee discounts? And can I stack more than one on a single ticket? Sarah's brain stops. Employee discount? She looks at him, really looks at him. And what she sees in his face is not the ordinary strain of a hard night. It's something deeper, something that has been accumulating for hours. She asks him what he means, and he tells her. The whole thing comes out in pieces, the way things do when someone has been holding them in too long and finally finds a safe moment to let go. The leader's revelation that she is a trainer at their other location dropped early in the meal, deliberately so Robert would understand from the beginning that he was being evaluated by someone who knew exactly what she was looking at. The running critique that followed. Not outright yelling, nothing that other tables would have noticed or that Robert could have escalated, just the constant, measured, professional delivery of the message that he was falling short, that he was slow, that he was incompetent, that in all her years of working in restaurants, she had never seen anyone handle a section quite this badly. She told him this while smiling pleasantly at her friends. She told him this while he was trying to do his job, carrying plates and filling glasses and navigating a full section on his first night alone. She told him this knowing exactly what it would do to a man who was already afraid he wasn't enough, who was already fighting against his own self-doubt with everything he had, who had chosen this job as a foothold, as proof that things could be different, and who was now being told by someone with professional authority that he had been wrong to hope. Sarah hears all of this. And the noise of the restaurant, the distant sounds of closing, the clatter of a kitchen winding down, the muffled conversation from the front, all of it seems to recede. She becomes very still, the kind of still that isn't calm, the kind of still that is the moment before movement. Here is what Sarah does not do. She does not walk to that table. She does not plant herself in front of the leader and tell her in clear and specific language exactly what kind of person she is. She does not match cruelty with cruelty, loudness with loudness, contempt with contempt. That would feel good for approximately 30 seconds and then spiral into a situation that the leader could control, could deflect, could reshape into a story where Sarah is the problem. Instead, Sarah thinks. She thinks about Robert, about what tonight has cost him, Not just the exhaustion and the stress, but the specific damage of having his confidence systematically dismantled on a night that was supposed to be a step forward. She thinks about how long it takes to rebuild that kind of damage and how easily it can be done, and how casually the leader did it with a smile on her face. And she thinks about the birthday song. The request came in at the end of the meal. Multiple birthdays, the leader announced, free cakes for everyone, and they want the song now. The kind of request that is less a request than a performance of entitlement. Look how well I know how to work a restaurant. Look what I can extract. Sarah thinks you want a birthday song. Okay, let's do a birthday song. But first, the manager. The managers at this restaurant were, by Sarah's account, genuinely exceptional. This matters more than it might seem. Restaurants are notorious for management cultures that protect the business over the staff, that smooth things over rather than address them, that ask employees to absorb bad treatment because a confrontation is bad for the atmosphere. Most service workers have a story, usually several, about going to a manager with something real and being told in one way or another to let it go. These managers were different. Sarah gives the front-end manager a fast, clean account of what has happened at that table, the demands, the cruelty dressed as professional critique, the specific knowledge that the leader, as a trainer at their other location, knew perfectly well that employee discounts cannot be stacked, and chose to attempt it anyway because she decided that the rules applied to other people and not to her. The manager listens. He doesn't get loud, he doesn't perform outrage, he gets quiet in a very specific way, the quiet of someone who has made a decision and now is thinking about how to execute it. And Sarah watches his face and thinks, he gets it. She asks permission for what she has in mind. He smiles. He tells her to go ahead, and then he mentions, almost as an aside, that he has a phone call to make, a boss-to-boss call, to the other location. Sarah processes this information. She thinks about what that call will contain. She thinks about the specific quiet rage she has just watched settle over her manager's face. And she thinks about the fact that this is a word-of-mouth restaurant, a place whose entire existence depends on what people walk away saying about it. And a trainer at a sister location has spent an evening demonstrating with professional precision exactly the opposite of everything this place stands for. She thinks, I would genuinely give up my spot in what's about to happen to be able to hear that phone call. And then she goes to find every available person in the building. Closing time at a restaurant is its own specific atmosphere. The dining floor is winding down. Sections are closed, lights dimmed over empty tables, chairs already flipped in some corners. The kitchen crew is breaking down their stations. The wait staff who've finished their sections are cashing out, rolling silverware, doing the quiet end-of-night work that nobody sees. The dishwasher is running the last racks. Everyone is tired, everyone is ready to go home. And Sarah is moving through all of them like a very small, very determined force of nature. She hits every single person she can find. Waitstaff, kitchen workers, the dishwasher, yes, the dishwasher, who apparently has an excellent singing voice and a fine appreciation for justice. Every person who has finished their section, every person who is nearby, every person who can be pulled away from what they're doing for 5 minutes. She gives each of them the fastest possible summary of the evening. Here's what this woman did, here's what she said to Robert, here's what she tried to pull with the discounts, and here is what we are about to do. She watches faces as she talks. The tiredness doesn't disappear exactly, but it shifts. It rearranges itself into something else, like purpose, like solidarity, like the specific energy of people who work hard and are underestimated and have just been handed a completely legal way to do something about it. She tells them to line up just out of sight of the corner table. She goes to find Robert. We're ready, she tells him. Drop the cakes. The corner table is feeling good about itself. They've had their meal, they've had their drama. The leader has spent an evening demonstrating to her own apparent satisfaction that she is someone who knows how the world works, someone who knows what she's owed and how to claim it. The free cakes are coming, the discounts are coming, and then they'll walk out, leaving behind a nervous older man who has learned something valuable tonight about the difference between thinking you can do something and actually being able to do it. She leans back in her chair with the expression of someone who has had a very productive evening. And then the crowd arrives. It comes from the direction of the kitchen, from the direction of the waitstaff station, from around the corner and through the door, and seemingly from every available surface of the restaurant simultaneously. Cakes balanced in hands, faces arranged in expressions of absolute, beaming, weaponized joy. Not 4 people, not 6, not the standard small cluster of slightly tired staff members running through a birthday song on autopilot. Everyone. The leader's expression shifts, just slightly. Something in her recalibrates. This is more than expected. This is unusual. This is... And then they open their mouths. Full volume, every single person. The restaurant's birthday song, which is already longer than the standard version, delivered with the kind of commitment and intensity that you only achieve when you're doing something that matters to you personally. The corner amplifies everything. Sound bounces off 2 walls simultaneously, comes back at the table from in front and behind at once, layers over itself in a way that makes it not just loud, but inescapable. There is no direction that doesn't contain the sound. There is nowhere for the sound to go except directly into the ears of 6 people who are no longer smiling. The smirks are gone, hands fly up. People flinch and jump with each fresh surge of sound. The leader, who spent an evening making a nervous man feel small, who used her professional knowledge as a tool of humiliation, who smiled pleasantly while systematically dismantling someone's confidence, is now sitting in a corner with her hands pressed against her ears, unable to speak, unable to leave, unable to do anything except endure. And the staff just keep going. Every word, every verse, every repetition, grinning the entire time. Sarah says a decade later that it hurt her own ears, that she was one of the people screaming, that the pain still makes her smile. I believe it completely. Part 10. The phone call. Here is what the leader doesn't know is happening while her eardrums are being comprehensively destroyed by the most enthusiastic birthday performance in that restaurant's history. In the back office, the manager is on the phone. He has gotten through to the other location. He has asked for whoever is in charge. He has given them a full, clear, precise account of what their employee, their trainer, the person they have designated to shape how new staff understand the job, has been doing in his restaurant tonight. The cruelty, the systematic dismantling of a new waiter's confidence, the abuse of professional knowledge, the attempted stacking of discounts that she, of all people, understood perfectly well were not stackable. Sarah doesn't know exactly what was said, but she knows her manager. She knows the specific quality of his quiet rage, the kind he almost never showed, and which, when it came out, meant something real was happening. She knows the way he spoke when something mattered to him. By the time the birthday song ends, finally, mercifully, triumphantly, the table is shaken, ears ringing, the self-satisfied energy of the evening has been thoroughly dismantled. And then the leader approaches the host desk. The manager is standing there. He holds out the phone. On the other end, the general manager of the company, not her direct supervisor at her home location, the general manager, one step below the owner, the person whose voice in your ear means that whatever you thought was going to happen tonight, something different is happening instead. The leader starts to cry. The excuses come out, the explanations, the attempts to reshape the story, to provide context, to offer a version of events in which what happened tonight is not quite what it looks like. None of it lands. Her employee number has been noted, the account has been given, the decision has been made at a level above the one she thought she was operating at. She walks out of the restaurant having paid full price for a meal she fully expected to discount, with ringing ears, with tears on her face, and with the knowledge that her professional life, come morning, is going to look very different than it looked this time yesterday. Sarah has carried this story for 10 years. She mentions it still warms her heart, that the memory of all those faces, grinning, screaming, absolutely committed to every word of that birthday song, is still one of her favorites, that even the pain in her own ears, in retrospect, feels like a trophy. And I've been thinking about why this story has that particular quality, that warmth, that completeness, that feeling of something genuinely resolved rather than just punished. I think it's this. The revenge wasn't really about the leader. It was about Robert, a man who walked into his first solo shift already carrying more than most people understood, who spent an entire evening being told by someone who should have known better that he was not capable, not enough, the worst she had ever seen. He wasn't. He was just new, just scared, just doing what people do when they're trying to build something from the beginning, making small mistakes, catching himself, trying again. The exact things that every competent person has done at the beginning of something new. And Sarah, who could have let it go, who could have told herself it wasn't her problem, who could have clocked out and driven home and put it behind her, looked at him and made a different choice. Not because she owed him anything, not because it was her job, but because she recognized something in his situation, and she decided that recognition came with a responsibility. The birthday song was loud and funny and perfectly aimed, but what it actually said, what it said to Robert in language he could understand even through the noise and the chaos and the relief of it, was this: "We see you. We have your back. You are not alone in this." That's what Sarah was really giving him. Not revenge, a reminder that the people around you sometimes notice more than you think they do. The leader walks out of the restaurant, ears ringing, full price paid, employee discount denied, tears dried on her cheeks, the knowledge of a phone call she can't undo sitting heavy in her chest. The staff watches her go, and somewhere in the building, a nervous older man who spent his entire first solo shift being made to feel like nothing, who came within a hair of walking out and never coming back, is standing in the back, probably still a little shaky, probably still processing what just happened. He is not alone. He is surrounded by people who screamed a birthday song at full volume on his behalf. That's the payoff. Not the firing, though that happened, not the tears, though those were satisfying, not the denied discount, though that was deserved. It's the moment a man who was starting over realized that starting over doesn't have to mean starting from nothing. Sometimes, if you're lucky, if you end up in the right place with the right people, you get to start over with backup. Here's what this story teaches me every time I come back to it. Power in service work is strange. On the surface, it looks completely one-directional. The customer has it, the worker absorbs whatever they bring. You smile, you refill the glass, you say, of course, right away. You find the path of least resistance and you walk it because making a scene costs more than it's worth. But that surface is a lie. The real power in any room, in any situation where people are underestimated, overlooked, or treated as less than, belongs to the people who are paying attention, who are watching, who are quietly deciding what matters enough to act on. The leader walked in with a title and a table and the confidence of someone who had never been on the wrong side of the equation she was working with. Sarah walked in with a nursing textbook in her bag and a section to manage and the quiet, accumulated knowledge of someone who had learned in both versions of her daily life that the most important thing you can do is notice when someone needs help and then do something about it. The birthday song was the something, and I think that's the part that stays with you. Not the loudness, not the tears, not even the firing. It's the fact that Sarah could have let it go. She didn't. If this story gave you something, if it made you smile or reminded you of a time when someone had your back when they didn't have to, or made you think about the last time you had the chance to do the same for someone else, hit that like button. It's a small thing, but small things add up. Ask Robert. And drop in the comments. I want to hear it. The best moment you ever witnessed in a service job. The time someone stood up when they didn't have to. The birthday song equivalent in your own life, whatever form it took. Subscribe if you haven't already, because we have more stories coming, stories about people who were underestimated and what happened when they decided they were done being underestimated. Some of them are louder than a birthday song. Some of them are much, much quieter. Both kinds will stay with you. See you in the next one.